Michelle Barone.
And I'm Mark Malone.
And it's time to wake up
With Rhinebeck Bank.
Yes, and we're talking manufacturing today.
Such an important topic here in the Hudson Valley. You know, a big business here. It's taken some hits over the last 20, 30 years, but I'm very excited that our guest today can talk to us about some of the things he's doing to keep manufacturing right here in the Hudson Valley.
Yes, and some of the challenges that he's facing right here in the U.S. and in the Hudson Valley.
Absolutely. So today we have Stephen Pomeroy, president of Schatz Bearing Corporation in Poughkeepsie. So welcome, Stephen.
Yes, Stephen. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for joining us today. Please have a seat.
To have you here as a guest. Welcome.
Thank you. So welcome. And you know, for all of our viewers out there, I guess the first question that they might have is what does Schatz Bearing Corporation do?
Well, I came prepared. Most people, we manufacture ball bearings, and a lot of people think that a ball bearing is this, and it's not. This is a ball. So this is a ball bearing. So if you kids that roller skated as when they were young, or I don't know, they're used in all kinds of applications, but this is what it looks like.
That's a beautiful ball bearing.
Yeah, and so we make ball bearings all kinds of sizes, from about 3/16 of an inch on the inside diameter up to maybe 14-inch on the outside diameter. So a pretty good size range.
Wow, what kind of applications do the ball bearings get used in?
Our biggest market is aerospace.
Really?
Interesting.
Yeah, and aerospace comprises aviation, commercial aviation, defense applications, and then the space part is, as you'd imagine, space. So we, and that's something that we're more recently into, which is satellite applications. So
really?
Yeah.
So a little bit of NASA right here in the Hudson Valley.
A little bit of NASA right here in the Hudson Valley. And you know, most people, when you look at an aircraft, maybe you don't really think about it, but there's a lot of moving parts on it. There's the wing flaps, the ailerons, the landing gear, the horizontal, vertical stabilizers. There's cargo doors. There's a lot of moving parts of an aircraft. To actuate those, there's gearboxes. There's auxiliary power units in case you lose power in the plane that need rotary action. So even though it looks like a fairly solid, static thing, it's there's a lot of movement.
There's a lot goes into
What
it.
are the ball bearings, where are they on the plane? Like, how is it used?
Well, you know, there's lots of different applications, but you know, for example, in the wing, there's these tubes that go through the wing, and there's the bearings support these tubes, and off those tubes you have control rods that actuate flaps, slats, things like that.
All those things behind the scenes that we're
Never think.
Well, right, and you know, in any industry, I'm sure there's things that you don't know about, and so we have our little window into this industry. So that's aerospace is one. Then some of our other, so that's probably 70-80% of our business.
Wow.
And then we do business with medical, semiconductor, and then some general industrial applications. And I think you know, one of our big things is custom bearings. You know, a lot of our competitors are larger companies. We focus in on doing, you know, smaller lot run custom ball bearings.
because you have the infrastructure in place to be able to.
Well, it's just that, you know, I think for a big company to move the needle, so to speak, sales-wise, they're just looking for all the big orders, whereas, you know, a smaller order gets us excited, and a lot of times those happen to be custom, small runs.
That's awesome.
So how did you get started in the ball bearing business and specifically in Poughkeepsie?
Well, this is one of those things, you know, I have young kids, and or if I have a chance to talk to any kid, never say, well, I'm never going to do this, because I'm a perfect example of that coming true. Or, you know, the other thing is, like, I hear my kids or some kids say, well, I'm not going to study that because I'll never do that. You don't know. I mean, you really don't know. So I ended up, I started down a path. I was actually studying electrical engineering in school, and my family got involved in this business in the early to mid 80s. And I mean, I won't go through the whole litany, but they eventually convinced me to kind of ditch that career, come and do this. And that was back in 1989, so it's been 27 years now.
Wow.
Long time.
It's unbelievable. Have you seen a change in manufacturing in the area?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like in your intro, I mean, it's, I would say, the country is changing. Everything's changing.
Yes.
And so, one of the things, and, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to talk about it or not, but, you talk about manufacturing taking a hit. I really look at, I mean, there's two ways to look at it. Yes, if you go back far enough in manufacturing, if you're making toys or you're making clothes or sneakers or something, the hit was complete. You're done. It's being made somewhere else. Other industries, it's just gone through a transformation. And so I think that that's continuing to go on. So if you look back at, I think it was 1979, we peaked in employment in the US at like 19.5 million manufacturing workers. And 30 years later, we're down to, what is it, 11.5 or 12 million. So just looking at it from that perspective, manufacturing is in the dumps, But another way to look, and I'm sympathetic to the people that made sneakers or made toys and didn't adapt to or couldn't adapt to other things. But during that same time period, in 2014 dollars, in 1979, the output was $1.1 trillion that manufacturing did. If you go 30 years later, that output is almost double to $2 trillion.
That's a very interesting way of looking at it.
So if you look at it that way, manufacturing is not dead at all. In fact, it's thriving.
It's evolving.
Yeah, it's thriving in the sense that with 40% or more less people, we're making almost double the output. So, so from that standpoint, it's a success. Again, taking into account, the people that have been either displaced. So from their perspective, it's not a success. And I'm not saying I'm not sympathetic to that, but it's
separating the difference between the actual production versus the employment numbers.
Right. So if you look at farming, for example, in the U.S., 100 years ago, 40% of the people were farmers, and now it's like 2%. But no one says that farming stinks in the U.S. We're like the breadbasket of the world, and it's because of technology. And that's one of the things that's going on in manufacturing right now is that if you look at the factory floors of today, they're using advanced equipment, advanced technologies, and again, I think that's one of the things that makes it tough to adapt, because if you were doing a repetitive, easy-to-train job 30 years ago, now you need to know the technology and so forth. So the skill set is different now too. So it's, I don't have, I guess maybe I'm optimistic in general.
I mean, I think the way that you're looking at it is important for everyone to understand, because, where a manufacturing job in the past might have been a low-skilled job, now it's a more high-skilled job where you need to have specialized training to operate a machine or whatever it may be.
Right. So I have a chart that shows that a similar type of metric where the output per person, and again, this is more speaks to the how quickly things are changing. Is that I think it was, I don't know the exact number on the chart, but it was over a 40+ year period. We doubled the output per person.
Wow.
And then in the next 13 years, it only took 13 years to double the output. So I believe that trend is going to continue. And it's all because of technology.
So how does technology play a role at Schatz Bearing?
Well, we're constantly looking for ways to. I mean, and this is one of the things that's going on in the aerospace industry. There's tremendous cost pressures, price pressures, and so we train people on lean techniques to try to do things better. We try to get good people, which we have been very successful with. But then the technology piece that you mentioned, we're constantly looking for ways to use technology to drive costs out. And so that could be automatic feeders, it could be robotic systems, all kinds of stuff that
software, I'm sure, plays a role.
Software, yeah. And again, this speaks to the skill set too, because if you were doing a repetitive, easy-to-train job, and now you need to be able to operate something that requires some programming, or you need to understand the physics or other behind the some of the machine tools that we're working. The skill set's different. So it's an exciting time. So anytime there's this rapid change, I think there's going to be some losers, but I think there's lots of opportunities as well.
I totally agree. I think technology's changed us as a whole in every industry.
Yep.
And I think that it's great that you're staying on top of the trend. I think that's what's most important, capitalizing on, technology and embracing it and moving forward.
So what about taking it to a local level and looking at the Hudson Valley in regards to manufacturing? From your expertise, where do you see manufacturing going in our area?
Well, I think if you look at New York State as a whole, New York State has historically been a challenging state to be a business of any kind, not just manufacturing, because of just the high cost of doing business in New York State. So that is a challenge. I mean, I'll give you an anecdote. We were looking to try to hire somebody that was living in the city of Chicago. And, I didn't really check things out. This is the one wonder of the internet, I guess, is that, anybody can check something out. And so while we're sort of early on in the negotiations of salary and relocation and so forth, he calls me up and he says, do you realize that the cost of living in the city of Poughkeepsie is 8% higher than to live in the city of Chicago? And I said, no, I didn't know that, but let me look at that. So that's a headwind for sure.
The tax burden certainly makes it difficult.
Right. So,
Wow.
so that's a headwind. But if I look at Dutchess County relative to some other counties, either in this area or in the state, I think historically Dutchess County has had a lower unemployment rate, and I think that speaks to the vitality of the business community here. And so, if I look at the experience of Schatz, for example, support like from Rhinebeck, we're a customer of Rhinebeck, and Rhinebeck has always been great to work with.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
And so, one of the things that people say is that access to capital can be a hindrance to growth, and working with you folks I've always felt you've been, had our back on that as far as that goes. So I think that support is.
We like to be a partner in your business, and I know Liz Rogers has always talked very highly of you and Schatz.
Great.
So.
This has been great. And I think it's not just access to capital, it's even if it's little things, and these are the types of things we do internally, look for ways to save cost. It may sound like a simple thing, but instead of sending somebody to the bank to deposit a check, we have a little gizmo that you put the check in, and
It saves time, efficiency, technology.
Banking's evolving just as is manufacturing.
Exactly. Glad that it's helpful. And like you said, on the local level, I think we do have thriving businesses here. I think we're lucky. I think, being a bank, we do allow access to capital, and that allows growth, like you said. So
I think one of the other, you mentioned Dutchess County, so I think, having support of folks like you is one thing. I think worth mentioning, I think one of the things that has helped to strengthen us is make investments in new equipment, as we mentioned, to technology, but just upgrading our existing machine tools. But we also upgrade our people in the form of training. And so it's worth mentioning two organizations that have been really helpful as far as the training goes. And one is the Council of Industry. Harold King is the executive VP there, and they're a great organization as far as supporting local manufacturers from a training standpoint. And then also Ginny Stoffel at the Dutchess Community College. She's the Dean of Community Services, and that's the side of the college that doesn't do degree programs. It's for continuing education and so forth, and she works with companies, and they've had some great programs, and the government supports those programs by defraying some of the expense of training for as far as that goes. So that support structure within Dutchess County is really important.
So that program specifically helps you getting skilled workers into your factory.
Well, not so much into the factory, is that when we have people that are existing workers, and we want to make sure that they stay abreast of we get a new technology in, we want to make sure that they understand how to, because it doesn't help us any if we get something fancy new whiz bang gizmo and then nobody can run it.
Fantastic partnership that allows you to develop. It helps with development.
I've heard about that program, and it sounds great. I know other local businesses that have been through the program, and it helps. And it seems like they find what you need, and they fit the program to your needs.
Oh, absolutely. And in fact, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it is not a one-size-fits-all type of thing. I mean, the Council of Industry has a number of of programs that fit every company. But if there's specific training that you need, that it's you know, we do high precision production grinding. There's not that many
companies in Dutchess County.
So we've been able to get, you know, high-level consultants to come in and provide training to our, you know, specifically to what we need. So that both of those things have been really, really helpful.
And that's a good way that Dutchess is also advancing their opportunities to the area.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about you and Schatz Bearing.
Oh, well, like I mentioned, we're in the aerospace industry. We make bearings, ball bearings for actuators.
And what's your role as president?
Oh, as president?
Yes.
Well, we have about 80 people, so you know, if it's different if you had 800 people. I think, you know, and you know, when I first started, we had many fewer employees. I think it was probably 30 or 40. So your role evolves as your organization changes. But I would say, getting good people and establishing a good culture is sort of the foundation for us as a company. So I make sure that I, you know, try to promote that as the best that I can. And I think the foundation really is the good people, because once you get the good core of people, then they'll take that and run with it. And so from that standpoint, I think that's been great for us. What else? I mean, I meet with key customers. I try to set strategy. I mean, you know, probably it's different from, somewhat different, I'm guessing, from other companies. Our management team gets together once a quarter and we sign each other objectives. So
That's
it's not
awesome.
It's not like I'm just sitting there and say, well, you do this, do that. I get the management team involved and we focus in on one person and say, okay, what is the most important thing for manufacturing or for quality or for finance? But then the focus is on me and say, well, what do I need to do? And then, so once we all leave the room, we're all on board with the objectives that we need to work on. So
Great.
yeah.
I'll leave you with one last question. What's the outlook for Schatz Bearing? What's coming in the future?
You know, I was just talking to one of the people that recently rejoined us, and I'm really optimistic, because I think one of the things that we didn't do a great job with in the past is get the word out that we're what we can do and what our capabilities are. And I think we've really upped our sales presence recently. And so from that standpoint, I'm really optimistic.
Very interesting information on manufacturing. I love the way you look at it.
Yes, agree.
I love the optimistic.
Me too. I totally agree. Thank you so much, Stephen. Pleasure.
Thank you for joining us today, Steve. That was such a great interview.
It was excellent.
I feel like I learned a lot about manufacturing. I learned a lot about, you know, Steve and his business here in Poughkeepsie.
And the local market, learning, and the global market, and knowing that we're producing more, we're being more efficient. Those are really interesting things to learn as well.
So I want to thank Steve Pomeroy, president of Schatz Bearing Corporation, for joining us today, and I hope you check us out next week.
Yes, next Monday, 8 a.m. on wakeuprhinebeck.com. We'll see you there. Thank you.
See you then.
Bye.